Honda shop.
Oh man, I'm excited. We've been on with Sean for years and years and years now, and Sean and I go way back. I want to say the last time.
Oh my goodness.
Last time the three of us were on, because Katie's filling in today for Jason Ross, I believe was, I'll just say this with all humility, perhaps, the greatest prank ever pulled in the history of radio. Those of you who don't remember, we actually played the audio a little bit last week. Sean and I set up a fake fight on Katie's last day with us, and Katie was almost in
like
tears.
What, like 5 years ago?
Yeah, she almost walked out of the room. She was so uncomfortable, and well, I have great memories of that. Joining us right now, fresh off his show in Houston, his award-winning, ratings-crushing show in the mornings in Houston, the one, the only Sean Salisbury. Good morning, brother.
Dave, good to be on with you. Katie, great to hear your voice again. Great to be on with you. Maybe Dave and I should start a fight right now. Take it through and welcome you back.
Good morning, Sean. I've missed you so. And let me just say that when we played it last week, I still got the same level of anxiety, even though I knew that it was a prank at this point. I mean, it's like it was a painful listen.
That's a hell of a Hall of Fame prank if you're still getting anxiety and you know the result. I love it.
Well,
it was a good one.
As I've told you many times, Katie, Sean is a card-carrying professional actor.
Member
this is
of
a guy
SAG,
that's been in movies.
Yeah.
Oh, but
again, point out, was snubbed for Best Supporting Actor in a comedy role for Benchwarmers. But hey, that's why SAG and AFTRA are on strike. Screw that.
Hey, between you and Val Kilmer for Tombstone, two of the biggest snubs I've ever heard in Oscar history. That's just my opinion.
I mean, listen, when I go to places, where people don't talk about, the two things they say to me is, Sean, snubbed, and I think of two guys, you and Val Kilmer, when I think of guys who are support good actors.
Well, getting to the week in football coming up at the end of the conversation. Sean's getting into some pretty cool stuff too on the side. We want to talk about that. I want to ask you, because we're out here, and I know you do radio out here quite a bit. The San Francisco 49ers going into Pittsburgh went from, oh my God, is Bosa going to play, to Bosa is going to play, and Tomlin always has his teams ready. This ain't going to be a walk for San Francisco, and they dog walked them. They absolutely did. What were your impressions on the Niners week one?
I had them going in and winning, Dave. I also, and Katie, I think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. I think we're going to get a 49er. I still lean towards the Philadelphia Eagles, but the 49ers, the roster, even with losing DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick, they've been able to plug in guys that understand what they're trying to teach. Kyle Shanahan has a tremendous roster, and they've been close. The key was, which quarterback is he going to be healthy? I knew the quarterback that if he was healthy. And Brock Purdy, and I said in San Francisco last week, I said, guys, what he does that is hard to teach and that great ones do. Now, he's still in the infancy of his career, obviously, but every great one I've been around that some of us mere mortals couldn't do is make the ordinary play all the time. Some of us could make the ordinary play once in a while and the extraordinary play once in a while, but the great ones, Brady, Breeze, Mahomes, Burrow, I mean, the list goes on. For those guys, they make it ordinary play 100% of the time. For the most part, the ball rarely hits the ground. Now, every now and then they'll make that throw that Josh Allen forced through to the other guy, and they'll make the big play. I believe, and I'm saying this out loud so everybody in the back can hear, that Brock Purdy has a special feel for football that you can't teach. Now, the things you can teach, really good feet, underrated athleticism, ball on time, and unbelievable understanding of what the head coach is trying to get done as a play caller. And with that and the weapons they have on both sides of the ball and making sure the back end holds up, this team is as good as there is in football, let alone in the NFC. And I fully believe that. And they're led by a guy who I think is going to be the quarterback for quite some time.
Well, Sean, obviously all Dave cares about is the 49ers. And since you now have predicted them to go to the Super Bowl, I feel that as a guest on this show today, I can ask whatever freaking question I want to ask. So as a Packer fan, I'm curious what your thoughts were after week one, the performance of Jordan Love, obviously taking over the reins there.
I loved it, Katie. I've been saying and thinking all off season that I felt, and Dave and Katie, going from our past, but Dave, the last couple of years, you know my feelings, how good Aaron Rodgers is. He's special. We know he's a Mount Rushmore thrower of the football. but I thought it got stale. I did. I think the players, because Aaron can be hard on you. He's a scorekeeper. And if you're a young receiver or a young lineman, he's not going to pull punches. And some people can't handle that. And I think after a while, John Gruden, Pat Riley, those guys' speech starts to wear on him, and you kind of need a new voice. I think it got to the point the offseason, like just kind of the offseason drama is constant every offseason. It was like, it's time to move on, and we got to finally see what this kid can do. And in his spot in his spot playing when Aaron was out, I thought he played well, but we wanted to see it when he's a full-time guy because it's a different accountability and responsibility. I thought he was really good. I think that they will embrace him in Green Bay, and I think it was time. And sadly, what happened to Aaron, because I was anxious to see him in New York. Yeah. I think he'd played great football. I think the Green Bay Packers will be every bit as good this year as they were last year, and they had their struggles. I think they're in good hands, and I think he's going to be the quarterback for a while. They needed a change in Green Bay, and they got the right guy.
Speaking of young quarterbacks, I want to run this by you, Sean. I wish nothing but the best for the kid. He seems like a nice guy, but just on the surface, I've long said I'm not a believer in Justin Fields. The problem is that my logic is 90% dictated by the fact that two of the weirdest things, the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Chicago Bears, are maybe two of the worst programs when it comes to how successful they've been historically at quarterbacking. You just haven't had, no offense to Mr. McMahon, but you just haven't had, both those places have had tough times. Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL, doesn't happen. Chicago Bear quarterbacks, we're talking Sid Luckman, Harbaugh, McMahon. Justin has both of those jinxes going against him, but he's in his third, fourth year now. I don't see him learning much. Is it him? Is it his surroundings? What is your take on him?
Yeah, I think this is Fields' second year, Dave.
This is his second. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is it his second or third? Now that you say it, it's running. It's either a second or third year. I'm trying to think. He didn't come out last year. Neither here nor there. He's in the infancy of his career. Sitting here thinking because all the coaching changed. Damn, is he in his second, third year? I'm not that old yet. So that a lot with USC receivers too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They said, "Oh man, other than Keyshawn, this guy first round pick, not successful." And I'm trying to guard against that.
Right.
And I've even heard it with USC quarterbacks as far as stars go. Right.
Yeah.
Well, in the NFL, I'm talking about.
Florida State's the same thing with quarterbacks. Same thing.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So I go through it. I'm trying to guard against it. Now you say, well, it's a trend. It is. I'm trying to give each guy credit for saying, okay, this one's different. But I don't know if it's development because coaching staffs have changed too. But getting to Justin Fields specifically, I think a lot of times, David, he's such a dynamic football player that it's almost like your biggest weakness becomes, or your biggest strength becomes your biggest weakness.
Right.
When a guy can do what he can do, what do you think is bailout? I always say that when I'm talking to defensive coaches or players, if I'm defending you, I need to know what your biggest crutch and what your biggest bailout is, which is one and the same. And if it's evading the rush and continuing, the continuation of a play instead of being a pocket guy. Now, if you're both fine, but if I ask the quarterback, what do you lean on when all hell breaks loose? What are you leaning on? Right now, Fields is leaning on feet. Well, okay, because they didn't push the ball down the field at all either. They protected him with underneath throws. I think he's an extremely gifted guy, but the way you learn is you got to at times challenge the establishment. You got to trust that the quarterback, regardless of who your team is, can make those throws in order for him to go back on tape and say, okay, now I get it. So, and I think what happens is he relies on his unbelievable ability, even though he's in the infancy and young quarterbacks still got a lot to learn in reading coverage and understanding what a defense is trying to do to you, that you rely on it and you don't give yourself a chance to expand on the things that maybe you don't do as well. What do we do, Dave, if you're a great driver of the golf ball, if you're an amateur? You know what you do when you get to the range? You'll hit a couple wedges and maybe a putt or two. You grab the driver.
That's right.
And I think with quarterbacks, we tend to do that. I'm a big play guy. Dude, I just want him to be boring for a while. And if you're boring, the natural ability will come through. I think there's a lot still to learn. He's a scary skill set, but there's still a lot of development in his simple, do the routine stuff that the great ones have to do.
And to your point, and watching a lot of film on Fields the last couple of weeks, it seems like, or last week, it seems like, and by the way, third season, so we were in the middle. He's going into his third. It's check, 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 and it seems like he is in love with the check down and then some and then run. That seems to be his bailout. And how much do you pin that on him and maybe a lack of vision, a lack of those anticipation throws? And how much do you put on the offensive coordinator and the plays they're calling for him?
Yeah, I could give you a perfect answer on that. If I was sitting in the room and listening to how the offense talks to him, and are you telling? And here's what I don't know about this, Dave. About that question is in the room. I don't ever want to tell my quarterback. We hear Noah, don't do this, don't do that. Let's start telling him do this and do that, so they hear that. I believe that positive thought process matters. But in that room, I'm thinking to myself, okay, are you trying to coach him where everything is don't get us beat? I don't like coaching that way. I want to say, you go beat that other team and then just make the smart play. Tom Moore, the longtime great assistant who belongs in the Hall of Fame, used to tell us all the time, and Peyton Manning will tell you the same thing. Don't play scared, just don't play stupid. And I'm not just talking to the quarterback. I'm talking to the coordinator and the coach as well. In order to develop, you have got to see it. So what happens is in that crutch you're talking about, his legs become his check down and the check down. Why? Because it's a safe place to live. You don't have to get comfortable being uncomfortable there because you know that. Now, the other side is true. If you're a shot taker all the time and forget that a check down gets you 7 yards is a positive play. There is a fine line. I think it's part of the development. I think it's part of his crutch to lean on. And I also think it's part of the way they approach him. You've got to take the governor off a great, talented guy. And if in 3 years from now, he's still Sam Darnold where you're throwing it to the other team or you're not doing the things that you need to do on a regular basis to be a starter, then you may have to go somewhere else and try to find that. So I don't think we're at a bust yet. I sure as hell think he's got some skill. And I don't think he's an MVP candidate yet because the development of this position, we're way too quick in this league to judge after 1 year good and 1 year bad because the light switch goes on for sometimes early and later. I think there's still a lot to learn. There's a big ceiling and a high one for him. The key is keeping him away from a high floor as well.
Sean Salisbury joining us on the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Sean, one more non-related question to the NFL. Obviously, you do your show in Houston, the news breaking about Kevin Porter Jr. and the alleged assault charges against his girlfriend in a New York hotel room. I'm curious your thoughts on that and really what is the vibe kind of in Houston after this news broke?
Yeah, the vibe yesterday, Katie, was it's always uncomfortable to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's our job, and you hate it, especially when you don't know all the facts. We're all quick to, oh my gosh, how dare. I don't. You got to just keep yourself out of those situations from a bit. You just do. You know, I know we say it all the time. The vibe, though, from a fan base and from the way I get it is they're ready to just move on from Kevin Porter Jr. Yeah. Talented guy, but there's been some questions in this character situation, and they've got a lot of good young players, and you're in a situation with a new coach and a team trying to make an impact and get to another level that you can't be bogged down with stuff like this. Now, it's far more important than basketball for his life and for hers. But as far as the facts go, we'll find all those out eventually. But the vibe here is I think people are ready to move on from Kevin Porter Jr. a lot last year when we were discussing it all basketball season.
Right.
But this may be the final straw for that. Now the question is, who's going to give him a chance? And did he squander it away? But more importantly is the things that go on off the field for some athletes get in the way. I mean, they put themselves in a position to stop doing what their day job is. Keep your hands off women and let's move forward. But I don't think there's a big support system for Kevin Porter Jr. staying in Houston right now. But I don't know all the facts. But when we do, I think it's easier to pass judgment. We're always quick to judge somebody, but whenever I hear that, I cringe because I always err on the side of safety for the woman and the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Salisbury with us. I'll just flip it back. There's no segue that's good off of that, but I'll flip it back into football. The big story of the week, a sad story, Monday Night Football, all the hype. And I know, Sean, I know you well enough to know you were right there with me with the goosebumps, Aaron Rodgers carrying the flag out, MetLife Stadium, 9/11, just all the hype, everything, the belief, everything that surrounded that, the Hard Knocks episodes. And you could tell when he went down, he knew it was a resignation. He knew what happened. He knew what was going on. You get the OT win by the undrafted kid. We just played the highlight before you came on. What a wonderful ending to such a crappy game. Here's my question for you. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, man, that defense, along with those skill players on offense, I have no problem saying the Jets could very well, with Aaron Rodgers, have been in the thick of it in the AFC and had a ceiling of a Super Bowl chance. That being said, those don't come along that great. We think we know what Zach Wilson is. If you're Woody Johnson, if you're Robert Saleh, if you're the GM over there, are you willing to let this season go to Zach Wilson, or are you making some serious phone calls, including, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but including the kid from Michigan?
Yeah, we still calling him a kid because he looks like he can still play, right?
Right.
And now 24 years later, you know what? Let me work backwards first with Zach Wilson. I root for these guys, you know, and 2 years, would he learn? And not only when he was struggling as a starter, another goes back to a guy who makes a spectacular play, falling down, throwing it on a third down play, and then comes back and throws the ball to a guy. You say, dude, you couldn't see him. There was 3 defenders. And what are you doing?
Right.
That's the part that drives you mad. With Aaron Rodgers, oh, my gosh. Let's go through the first weekend. The 49ers, impressive. Mm-hmm. We saw the Dallas Cowboys defense, impressive. But now think about Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, how good they are in that running game. Yep. And assuming Aaron plays at 90% of his MVP level, because I think he was rejuvenated.
Yep.
I think he needed a change. I think we were in for watching a guy have an MVP-type season. And after what I saw defensively, and I love what they do, they're as good as any team I saw the first weekend in the AFC.
Yep.
They are on the defense side. And then with his accuracy and their believability, that offense was going to elevate. It's devastating. It sucks. It drives. I don't care if you're a Packer fan or Aaron Rodgers fan. And I did get the chills. Everything about it. And then the way it ended, fans stayed tuned, and what a walk-off win for them. And why? Wow. They stole a victory without their starting quarterback. They did. Mm-hmm. They earned it, but they stole it, which gives them 1-0 now. We got to find out where Zach's going to take them. And I'll tell you this, they are a Super Bowl team with Rodgers. Without him, they can still make the playoffs. If you can, whether it's him, Zach Wilson, or somebody else, if you can just give me a 7 at quarterback who just doesn't, who doesn't put us in bad short fields, you will have a chance in most games to be in it to win. And with Brady, I think you'd be on crack if you don't make the call. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
The last 2 years, the guy throws for high 4,000, 30 touches. I mean, listen, and if you're Brady, why wouldn't you be? You're not on TV yet this year. Why wouldn't you be tempted to go with a team that gives you one more chance in New York? Dude, I'm beating down his door, and I'm making him tell me no. You are exactly right. Other than that, you may have to trade, because I don't see a free agent out there that comes in right now and makes a huge impact. I think that I would make that call. Whether it works or not, they're staking a lot of their claim into Zach Wilson, but he's got to protect the football because that defense will score this year.
Last question for you. Sean Salisbury joining us, as he normally will each and every Tuesday. We've had some schedule stuff. Sean's a very, very busy guy, as we know, and we appreciate him always joining us. I haven't talked to you since last year. You and I are just absolute both huge college football honks. One of us played, was decorated, was a 4-star athlete, legendary. The other one is you. And so we're so you and I love the game. We love the game. And you're a Trojan. You born and raised in that environment. With everything going on, not just the NIL, the conferences realigning and all that. I'll just skip to the punch here. Are we on the verge, Sean, and would you be in favor of what's been rumored, where you develop like a 30-team Premier League style, everybody beats the crap out of everybody every week, go to a playoff type of thing? Where do you think this is all going to end up?
Double it. I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
At some point. 60. I do. I think, to me, I don't know how the Pac-12 is going to survive and call them year. Yet, look at the way the Pac-12 play this year. It may very well be the best conference in football right now. So if they're going out with an exit party, it's a good way to go. I think we're headed for a power where the NC2A becomes, and I think they're already relegated to, they don't have the power anymore. I think what you're going to see is the players with a union in the Power 5 schools and a handful of others that come into that, 60 teams. I think you'll expand the playoff, although I don't want it like NC2A. And I think you're eventually going to have the non-power schools that are not in that power position playing for their own national championship like the FCS does. And I think you're going to see a bunch of the big boys getting after it and having their own national championship. I do. And I think we're going to have a players union. I think you're going to have a commissioner for that league too. It's changing. and it's going fast. In the last 3 years, we've seen things change faster than I've ever seen since I left college. So I'm in favor of giving what's best for everybody, not just for one group. And it's sad what's going on out west, but we already know what draws it. It's not health, it's money. And as long as money drives it, that's what's going to happen. And if there's $5 more, they're going to go get the extra $5.
Yeah. Amen. Sean, before we let you go, you're a great follow on Twitter. Everybody follow Sean at Sean Unfiltered. And, you weren't busy enough, Sean, being America's guest, doing all the things you do, running your own show. But now look at the fine mess you've gotten yourself into in all good ways. You're doing some pretty crazy stuff on the sideline in a good way. Talk to us about what you've been up to.
Yeah. I'll try not to bore you with details just real quick. I was approached about, in January, February, about a company that had put a fan engagement that they wanted to make it about the fan app, that fan engagement all over, where they could come into a community and be there, audio, video, not linear, and they could be involved in it every day with a chance to monetize, with great hosts, with great sponsors, and betting app that's on there where you go in and go out, where the technology was unbelievable, but also easy to navigate. And they called me and asked me, and I went through a couple months of negotiating. I'm the president of PSF. It's Pro Sports Fans. Go and get that app, guys. It's free. And at PSF_app on Twitter. And we've put together compelling content. We'll have every media cast, every game that's played on the NFL season this year. There will be a Manning cast. I call it the fan cast, where you can go in and engage with them. So basically it's a fan app with great talent and great. Wait till you see the graphics and the data that we're providing in real time. So if I'm interviewing you, David, somebody wants to talk to you, they don't have to wait till the podcast comes out and say, well, I'm going to tweet him. It's not linear. They come right in right now with an interview and start talking to you or Charles Barkley, where they're engaging. We always talk good about the fan and say we need more of them. Well, we've created, I think, not only a game changer, but epic content and great content providers and quite frankly, great technology. And as the president, getting talent and dreaming up, investors and all that, the feedback's been great. And I think that we're on a fast track to something that's going to change the game. And so it's kind of been on steroids now. And with fan engagement, the feedback after the first weekend, they'll do shows just like we all do, but they also do a media cast for every game and every market with every team covered wall to wall. And fans, you got a seat at the table. It's PSF_app on Twitter. Go get that Pro Sports Fan app, PSF. I think you'll love it, and I think we're into something really special.
I'm looking at it right now at PSF_app. Grab the app, and we always are going to support anything you do. Plus, that sounds really killer as well, and I look forward to talking about that throughout this season, each and every time you and I speak. Appreciate you, as always. Missed you. Great to have you back. It's not football season. It's not fall without Sean Salisbury, and the cherry on top is watching Kayte wait to see if we're going to get into an argument.
One of my favorite, no, that's not happening, Kayte. One of my favorite people in the world, both of you guys' favorite people, should I say, you and Kayte. And I love you guys, man, in Sacramento town, the fans, everything about it. And I love it, and I can't wait till next week. I appreciate all the good stuff, man. Thank you. Kayte, it's great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too, Sean. Take care.
Love you too, brother. Take care. Bye-bye. That is Sean Salisbury. We are way late for a break. When we come back for Down Territory, we'll see if